The Essentials of Children's Literature talks about reading theater. And one aspect of reading theater is just reading out loud, and reading out loud in ways that sort of engage the student listener in a theatrical sort of experience. I tried my hand at that online in 3 readings from Jack Prelutsky from The Dragons Are Singing Tonight. And I tried things like embedding my picture primarily within the frame of the poem itself and the illustration that was created by Peter Siss. And in doing this, I tried to sort of have this immersive experience of poetry. The extent that it worked is going to be up to you and whatever students are reading these and listening to these. But doing that is something that if you want to do the first discussion, you have 4 options, for your discussions this week. For the first option, we're going to be looking at poetry theater and the ways that our verbal articulation of a poem and our response to that poem are theatrically experienced rather than just read by the child viewer / listener. So if after reading these poems, things that I would ask a sample audience, I'm assuming elementary school students, would be the definitions of these words, because Jack Prelutsky's poems have these very elevated diction that's not something that elementary students would likely have encountered prior to hearing this poem. So first, what I would do is read the poem. Just experience it. Then, let's break it down and understand these different words and their definitions, and even talk about where do you find a definition, because that's something you're going to work with elementary age students. And then, let's read it again. Now that we know what these different words mean, when we read it again, do we get any sort of different feeling? And then finally, the discussion I would have with elementary age students is thinking about, how do big words work? If we replace the word cacophonous with just loud, which is a synonym for the word, would it be as effective? They mean the same thing, but does the message and the feel of the poem change when we just say loud instead of cacophonous? How does the sound of a word, the lyricism, the language choice matter in poetry? And so with elementary age students, after we have this discussion, which hopefully would bring out some of the importance of the sound of language, the feel of language, we would go into, okay, let's use one of these words to write a sentence about dragons or other magical creatures. And then let's write a 4-line poem of our own about a magical creature using a synonym of the word. So what is the purpose of this kind of activity? 1, it's just the experience, the joy of the poem, hopefully. And then let's get down into vocabulary and language and what do things like synonyms even mean? And how is a synonym different than a cinnamon roll? Like, that was a big concept when I was a kid. So breaking that down here in a lesson and helping students go from the joy of poetry to what does it mean, then back to that creative side, I think is an important kind of back and forth, because we don't want to suck the joy out as we are going into explaining and analyzing and understanding. That should be part of an increasing of the enjoyment of language rather than trimming back. So this is the assignment I would design for our first section. And here are the things that you are going to do if you're going to answer this as your discussion board post. So you've got 4 options for your discussion board post, and I'm enjoying that. I hope you all are too, looking at different things that different students would do with poetry.